live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.
Benny Ricciardi is here to break down the day's betting board for you.
Let's go, Jerry. Go!
Taking a first look at the day's bets, it's time for the FTN Betting Show.
Welcome to the FTN Betscast for Wednesday, July 6th here at FTN Bets, sponsored by our friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players, and now you could win on Sleeper by playing in their new over-under game. It's super easy to play. So first, in any sport, you're going to choose two or more players that you like and pick whether they're going to go over or under their listed total. So, for example, in baseball, it could be things like the number of hits, maybe the number of runs, the number of strikeouts for a pitcher. Then you're going to choose an amount of money you want to enter into the contest. And if you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times your money all the way up to 20 times your money if you go 5 out of 5 and get them all correct. But the main reason why I'm excited about this new over-under game on Sleeper, it's the only app where I can join with my buddies contest and we could all play together. It has a built-in group chat where I could see what you're playing, you could see what I'm playing, and we could all see what the guy who won 3 days in a row is playing so that we could all tail along and make some money. It's insanely fun when everybody is rooting for the same things and trying to get the same things to go over or under. So stop what you're doing now and download the Sleeper app, play in their new over-under game, have some fun with your friends, and make a little bit of money in the process. On your mobile phone, you can join our listener group on Sleeper at sleeper.com/FTN bets, and Sleeper will automatically match that first deposit up to $100. Again, go down to the description in this podcast, sleeper.com/FTN bets, and you'll be eligible for that $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply, so see Sleeper's terms of use for the details. Today, we're going to wrap up our look at the sports betting picks for the season, and we're going to go back to the NFC East, the last team that we haven't talked about. How about them Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys here today? The Cowboys were 12-5 last year. They lost in the wild card round to San Francisco, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Jeff Ratcliffe has them projected for 10.2 wins this year. And the market is kind of fluctuating on. Well, it's not really fluctuating. There's different numbers we can take, but when you see the odds, you'll understand what I'm talking about here. Sugar House, Bet Rivers, and Unibet have Dallas Cowboys at 9.5 wins. DraftKings has them at 10. PointsBet has them at 10.5. And as you can expect, some of them are juiced up a little, some of them are juiced down a little. So let's take a look at the numbers here. At that 9.5 number, the over is -177. The under is +140 on Sugar House, Bet Rivers, and Unibet. Now, again, we would project them to go over. Jeff has them at 10.2, so the over 9.5 is there. But -177 is a massive amount of juice to be asked to pay here. So I don't really love taking that 9.5 number on the over. And like I said, I do think they're going to go over, so we're not going to be looking at that +140 on the under. 10 wins is probably the consensus number out there in the market because anything at 9.5 is juiced up. Anything at 10.5 is juiced down a little bit here. So 10 is probably the number where it should be. DraftKings has this over under at -110 at 10 wins right there. So definitely something you want to kind of consider when you're looking at it here. At that 10 win number, -110 for the over with our 10.2 projection. You know what? It's probably fair value right there. That's probably where it should be, not really getting any additional bump there. The place where I think the number is wrong, and we can find a little bit of value if you're willing to take a little bit of risk here, is actually over on PointsBet. So PointsBet, FanDuel, and MGM all have this number at 10.5. The payout on PointsBet, though, for the over 10.5 wins is +135. The payout on FanDuel and MGM is only +110. So you're getting an extra 25 basis points by going over the PointsBet and playing it over there. So I think that is the place you really want to look at. If you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys to have another big year, they don't even have to get back to the 12-5 they had last year. They have an extra win in there that they could go. If they go 11-6 or better this year, you could cash for +135 over on PointsBet, which, like I said, I think it's just a wrong number. You know, the other places that have it at 10.5 have it at +110. So getting an extra 25 basis points there, I think, is a good deal. So I'd like the over 10.5 wins. I would play it on PointsBet. Under 10.5 wins is -125 on FanDuel and MGM. It's -165 on PointsBet there, which makes sense, right? Because if they have the over at 135, higher than the 110 there, they're probably also going to have the under at a worse payout than FanDuel and MGM do, which is exactly what we see here. If you want to play that under 10.5 wins on Dallas, minus 125, FanDuel and MGM is the place to go there. Like I said, to me, I think the best bet of all of these is to play the over on points bet at plus 135. I feel like that number is just a little bit off from the rest of the market and where it should be there. Now, Dallas did make the playoffs last year. They're very likely to make the playoffs again this year. They're minus 2 there. That's a big number. Bet River Sugar House Unibet have it at that, minus 240 number there. So that is the best place that you can play that. It is, let's see, minus 250 over on minus 250 over on DraftKings. It is minus 300 over on BetMGM there. So, there are some good numbers that you can play, and that's where they are in the market at the moment. Couple other numbers I wanted to throw out there for the Dallas Cowboys. FanDuel has them as the last team to be undefeated at 21-1 at plus 2,100. I don't think that's a crazy bet either. They had a 6-game win streak in 2021 when the team was healthy. They do have a tough schedule this year, which, tends to happen when you finish first in your division. You got to play a bunch of the other first place winners in the next year. So it isn't the easiest schedule in the world for the Dallas Cowboys. But again, plus 2,100, decent number there if you want to throw something on there. I know there's a couple Cowboys fans out there that are looking at that number and saying it's a lock. Like I said, plus 2,100 is a pretty good number. This number is under 20-1 on a couple other sites where I saw it. So FanDuel at plus 2,100 for the Cowboys to be the last undefeated team. Not the craziest number out there. Remember, there's only 32 teams in the NFL. So, again, do you think the Cowboys have a chance to be one of them? Yeah, I do think they have a chance to win a bunch of games. And, if you're going to win a bunch of games, then you have the chance to be the last undefeated team, even if you do have a tough schedule there. So Dallas, I think, is a decent team to look at there. Best regular season record. I don't know if I would play this because I think it's too low, but 10-1. Best regular season record on Caesars for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, they're minus 240 to make the playoffs. Great number there. They're 10-1 in order to have the best regular season record. Again, low number, great number, but low number. You know what I mean? What that really is telling us is that the books and the bettors have a lot of faith in the Dallas Cowboys this year. So that's why I kind of like some of these numbers, the over 10.5 wins that we talked about on PointsBet, another nice number there. And it all kind of fits in with the numbers that we're seeing everywhere else. And the numbers we're about to talk about here in a minute, which is the Cowboys to win some trophies this year, whether it be the division, the conference, or ultimately maybe even the Super Bowl. So let's take a look at some of those numbers. The Cowboys are the biggest favorite to win the NFC East. They are as low as plus 135 is the best number we can get on them on DraftKings. Plus 125 on like Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House, plus 120 FanDuel, MGM. The low is plus 115 on PointsBet and Caesars, but DraftKings at plus 135 for them to win the division is the best number out there. And I do like that number because you're getting at least 10 to 20 basis points over all these other books that we're talking about. At plus 135, they're giving the Dallas Cowboys about a 42.5% chance to win. I actually think the Dallas Cowboys probably have about a 50% chance to win this division because I'm not a big fan of the New York Giants. They're the longest price on the board. I think the Washington Commanders have a good young nucleus, but I don't think they're there yet. So I think they still have a little bit of a ways to go. And then the only team that I think can challenge them is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think the Dallas Cowboys are better than the Philadelphia Eagles. So again, you never know how injuries are going to work out or anything like that. So I'm not saying this is a lock, but at plus 135, I do think there is good value on the Cowboys to win the NFC East. That number over on DraftKings, best place you can play it. To win the entire NFC. So let's see, to be the number one seed in the NFC, you can get that at plus 500 over on DraftKings as well for the Dallas Cowboys. But for them to win the NFC, you can get a price as high as plus 850 on FanDuel and DraftKings. They are the fifth shortest price to win the NFC. Tampa Bay is the shortest price. Green Bay is second. Those teams are like plus 300, plus 400. The LA Rams around there as well, like plus 4, plus 5. San Francisco, a little bit ahead of the Dallas Cowboys here. They're like plus 6, plus 7. But remember, and I know Cowboy fans are going to hate this, but San Francisco was the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year. So they do deserve to be a little bit ahead of them, even if they are making a quarterback change and changing a couple things around here. I do think that is one of the ways that you could go. So plus 850 on FanDuel and DraftKings. It's 800 on Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House, as low as 750 over on MGM. But FanDuel, DraftKings at plus 850. Best place you could play the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC. Like I said, I prefer to bet them to win the NFC East. I think that's where the value is. But Again, if you're a Cowboys fan and you want to bet them to go all the way, win the NFC, plus 850 on FanDuel DraftKings, the best price you can get. Speaking of going all the way, the Super Bowl price on them is plus 1,800. Caesars, Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House, FanDuel, DraftKings all have it at that plus 1,800 number. It's plus, so let's see, 17 to 1, so plus 1,700 on PointsBet, 16 to 1, plus 1,600 over on MGM. But Caesars, FanDuel, DraftKings, Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House, 1,800 for the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl. I do not love that bet. I would have needed it to be at least probably 25 or 30 to 1 before I would really, really get interested and think like, hey, there's a lot of value in this number here. I'm not saying 18 to 1 is a bad number. I think 18 to 1 is probably where it should be. But again, we don't make money by betting on things where they should be. We make money by betting on things that are underpriced and probably should be. I mean, overpriced and no, underpriced. We said it that way. Underpriced and should be a little bit higher. And that's really what we're looking at here. Like I said, I think this number should be 25 to 1, 30 to 1. If it's 18 to 1, I don't really think there's any value there. I'm not going to be looking to take it. If anything, I would actually be looking to take the other side of it. But, not many sites offer will not win the Super Bowl as a bet there. So we're going to stick away from this one here. But 18 to 1, Caesars, FanDuel, DraftKings, Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House. Best place to play the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl if you are so inclined to do so. So that's going to wrap it up for the team stuff here. Let's talk about some of the player props because there's some very interesting player props here with the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm actually going to start on the defensive side of the ball here with my man, Micah Parsons here. Defensive player of the year, 10 to 1 on DraftKings and Caesars, 9 to 1 on every other book out there. This guy had a ton of sacks last year. I think he had like 64, 65 tackles, but he had 13 sacks last year. Was somebody who, looked pretty dominant at times for the Dallas Cowboys. Remember, he was drafted. They had to sit him for a little bit, get him right, make sure he was healthy after that injury. But he played 16 games last year, had 13 sacks. Those are some really, really good numbers. Again, it was only his first full season in the NFL. So we'll see if he takes a step forward this year. I don't think 10 to 1 is crazy. It's not something that I put a bet on here or something I would tell you guys to run out and make sure you got your money on. But, 10 to 1 is an interesting number here on Micah Parsons. The guy that I know everybody's going to want to talk about here. So let's go to the quarterback. That's going to be Dak Prescott. 16 games last year, 4,449 yards passing, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Very good season for Dak Prescott, at least based on the numbers there. He is a legit MVP candidate, as low as 12 to 1 on FanDuel. That is the lowest price on him. The best price on him, though, DraftKings and Caesars have him at 16 to 1, plus 1,600 for Dak Prescott to win the MVP. I definitely think that's something important. When it's quarterbacks, I skip over the Offensive Player of the Year award. That tends to be a position player award nowadays. We talked about this a little bit earlier on in some of these podcasts. I think when we did the Buffalo Bills podcast with Josh Allen, how basically the MVP has become a quarterback award over the years. In the last 20 years, there's been 2 other guys who weren't quarterbacks that won it. Both times it was a running back there. But every other year, including a bunch of the last recent years here with guys like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, I think there's a couple in there for Aaron Rodgers as well. Matt Ryan had one. It's basically been a quarterback award lately. So I like to look at the MVP when we're looking at the quarterbacks, and Dak is sitting at 16 to 1. Is there value at 16 to 1? It's probably where the number should be, right? Because I don't think he's the favorite. You got guys like, the guys that we just mentioned, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes and some of those guys there. Dak, in order to get this award, would probably have to throw for 5,000 or more yards this year, probably have to get above 40 touchdowns, and would have to keep those interceptions at 10 or below, because that is one of the things we notice when we look at it. The guy who wins the MVP tends to be a guy with single-digit interceptions and, 40-plus touchdown passes and, 5,000-ish, 4,500, 5,000-ish yards. And Dak is kind of right there in that range with the yardage. Most passing yards in the league, 13 to 1 for Dak Prescott here. I don't know. I mean, it's as low as 10 to 1 on Caesars. So yeah, there is a little value at 13 to 1 on Unibet and Bet Rivers and Sugar House here, but I don't know if I really want to take this. Again, he threw for 44, 45, a little under 4,500 yards last year. He did miss one game, but I mean, even if you give him that game back, right? Let's say he has a great game and throws for 300. That only gets him to 48. You had a couple guys last year that threw for 5,000 yards. So, would 4,800, 40 touchdowns and 10 interceptions have been enough to get Dak there? I don't know. Maybe. Josh Allen threw for over 4,000 yards and he added 700 yards on the ground and a bunch of touchdowns in both. and he fell a little bit short last year. So it's not an easy award to win overall here. And I don't know if he's really the guy I want for the most passing yards. I actually like the MVP bet more than I like the most passing yards bet. It pays better overall. And again, if he's going to have the most passing yards in the league, probably a pretty good chance he's going to be up there as an MVP candidate as well, assuming that the Cowboys do win 10, 11, 12 games here this year or more. So 4,300 passing yards is the yards for Dak, and it's minus 112 on FanDuel over and under. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? He threw for more than this last year, 4,449 yards. You know, when you look at the quarterback passing props from last year, about 70% of them went under. The thing is, though, and this is what I want people to know, what you're really betting on here is whether or not these guys stay healthy, right? Because if Dak stays healthy, plays 17 games, I think he goes over 43 easy. Hell, he could probably even miss a game or two, 15, 16 games played, and could probably still get over 4,300 yards here. I think the way that this offense is set up and as good as Dak is, that's not a crazy number to ask him for, right? Especially if he plays like 16 games. 15, he would have to have a really good season, maybe have like a 450, 500 yard game somewhere in there to help him get over there, which again is not out of the question for a guy like Dak Prescott. We've seen him do that before. So, 4,300 yards. Yeah, I do like the over a little bit here if he stays healthy. But again, that's really what you're betting on is whether or not he stays healthy. If he plays 17 games, he probably gets it. But the reason why like 70% of these failed last year is because a lot of these guys will get injured, and you don't even have to be injured for the whole season, right? I mean, 4,300 yards, if you only play 15 games, you're basically throwing for like what, 280 a game, 290 a game. That's a lot of yards to ask a guy for. If you play all 17 games, well, it's not that big an ask anymore. Now you're looking at like 250, 260 yards, which I do think is something that could easily average. But again, there's just a lot more ways that you could fail than succeed. In order for him to get 4,300 plus yards, he needs to have a good season. He needs to stay healthy. His receivers need to step up. There's a lot of variables there that all have to go right in order for him to get over this number. Only one of those variables needs to go wrong in order for him not to get there. So again, I like this number, but I don't know if it's really something I'd be willing to mortgage the house and, put all my money on there. So let's talk about running back Ezekiel Elliott next year. Everybody keeps talking about the down year, the bad year, the horrible year that Ezekiel Elliott had. Ezekiel Elliott had 237 carries for over 1,000 yards last year and 10 touchdowns. There's a lot of guys in the league that wish they had a good season as bad as what his quote unquote bad season was. Now, are there some drawbacks? Absolutely. Tony Pollard showed that he's a guy that deserves some touches one way or another, whether Zeke is healthy or not. And Zeke played last year hurt. He was not healthy last year. Still got to that 1,000-yard mark, though. So that is something to keep in mind. And the reason I say that is the number this year for rushing yards on Ezekiel Elliott is all the way down at 850. 850 seems very low for a guy that ran 4,000 last year. Because again, it seemed last year like Tony Pollard was in there as much as Zeke was, especially late in the season. And yet Zeke still had the 1,000 yards and the 10 touchdowns and played through some injuries and all that stuff. So a healthy Ezekiel Elliott, if he gets fed 250, 300 carries this year, he should be able to top this easy. I mean, he still averaged over 4 yards per carry last year, which again, everybody talked about it being a down year for Zeke. 237 carries, 1,002 yards, over 4 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns. I mean, again, maybe it's not a top 5 running back season, but it's not as far off as a lot of people are making it sound. Ezekiel Elliott can still go out there and play. I actually like the over on Ezekiel Elliott rushing yards this year at 850.5. Some other numbers on Zeke here, and you can get that at FanDuel, minus 112 to the over. Best price I saw. I think PointsBet has it at minus 115, and I think they actually have a higher number than 852. So I like that over 850 on FanDuel. That's the place I'd play it. Zeke to lead the league in rushing yards, 28-1. I'm not going to take that number. I mean, again, one of the problems I have is that Pollard has earned those extra snaps and has earned his time out on the field. So, if he's going to earn his time out on the field, earn those extra snaps, even if Zeke does have another good year, if he's not the guy that's getting 350 plus carries, like I don't think he's going to have a great year. So, I'm going to keep him away. You're going to have guys like Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. Like these guys are going to get fed, like, 15 to 25 carries a game as long as their team is winning a lot of games. And I just don't see that happening with Zeke, even if the Cowboys end up like, 15-2 and are winning every one of these games. I think you'll see Pollard mixed in more than you will see some of these other guys back up. So don't really love the most rushing yards there for Zeke. Offensive player of the year, 75-1 on FanDuel. It's as low as 50-1 on MGM. It's 66-1 on PointsBet. A lot of numbers out there for him. I mean, 75-1, yeah, it's a big number, but he would really need to do something special, and I just don't see that happening here. And that brings us to the last guy we're going to talk about, the one remaining healthy stud wide receiver that the Dallas Cowboys have, and that's our boy CeeDee Lamb. Remember, Amari Cooper is now up in Cleveland. Not really sure who's going to be throwing him passes. It could be Deshaun Watson, could be Baker Mayfield. We'll have to see how that whole situation works out. And Michael Gallup is not 100%, and it seems like he might even miss the beginning of the season. At least that's the rumors and the rumblings coming out of Cowboys camp right now. And that's going to mean, at least early on in the season, the first couple games, CeeDee Lamb is going to be the number one guy, and he's going to get fed. And he was very good last year, too. So, offensive player of the year, CeeDee Lamb, 50-1 on FanDuel, PointsBet, Unibet, BetRivers, SugarHouse. It's down as low as 40-1 on MGM and DraftKings here at plus 4,000. So, plus 5,000, offensive player of the year, CeeDee Lamb, FanDuel, PointsBet, Unibet, BetRivers, SugarHouse. That's the place you can go and play that number there. Most receiving yards in the league. Interesting here. CeeDee Lamb, 16-1 is the best number we can get on him for most receiving yards. That's it. Just 16-1 plus 1,600 on Caesars. PointsBet has it at 15-1. DraftKings 14-1. Unibet, BetRivers, SugarHouse 13-1. FanDuel has the low number at 12-1 there. But the best number in the house, Caesars, 16-1 on CeeDee Lamb for the most receiving yards. And then even his receiving prop for the year, 1,100.5 receiving yards. FanDuel has the over and the under at minus 112 here. I mean, I love CeeDee Lamb. He's a guy that I feel like I was higher on than most people last year. I don't think I'm higher on him than most people this year. Everybody seems to be really high on him. He's going really high. I think as much as I love him, I think I only have like one of him so far in all my best ball drafts because people keep taking him way before I would be, looking at him. There's still other guys on my board that I have ahead of him when the average person is taking him off. And maybe I'm the one who's wrong here, but I would play the under on this number. And it's not a knock on CeeDee Lamb or his talent or his skill set or anything like that. He's going to get a massive target share with Amari Cooper gone and with Michael Gallup not being 100%. The guy should be an absolute stud. He's going to make a bunch of my daily fantasy lineups. And again, 1,100 yards. I don't think it's crazy, but there are not a lot of receivers that are going to get 1,100 yards next year. There's going to be a handful of them. So again, you're saying that CeeDee Lamb is going to have one of his best seasons in the NFL. You're saying that he's going to stay healthy for the year. You're going to say that Dak's going to stay healthy so they keep throwing the ball for the year. We're talking a lot of ifs here, right? And when you have a lot of ifs, again, all those ifs have to go right in order for this number to be an over. One or two of those little ifs go wrong. That could be the thing that kind of dooms him. So I love CeeDee Lamb. I'm not knocking the talent. I'm not knocking the ability. I'm not knocking anybody who's expecting a huge year out of him because I am too. I'm kind of knocking the number, though. 1,100 is a big number right there. And like I said, it's at a minus 112 to the over and the under. Some other sites have this number a little bit lower. It would have to be down in the low thousands, like 1025 or something, before I start taking the over on this number. Again, expecting a huge year out of him. We talked about a lot of wide receivers this year that are projected below 1,000 yards. So the fact that he's at 1,100 means people are not only expecting a big year, they're expecting a huge year out of CeeDee Lamb, which, again, I don't disagree with, but I would be taking the under on that. Also why I'm staying away from that offensive player of the year at 50-1 number. So there you go. That's going to wrap it up for our betting preview of the Dallas Cowboys here on the FTN Betscast. Remember, go down to the description of this podcast, sign up for Sleeper and their new over-under game. Sleeper.com/FTN Bets gets you into our group chat and also allows you to save up to or get a deposit bonus of up to $100 on your first deposit over there. This is Benny Ricciardi signing off for FTN Bets here on the FTN Betcast. Good luck today, everybody.
Live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.